like to introduce Nobuo. Nobuo has been serving as the president of the Asian Big History Association since 2018. He's also adjunct lecturer at JF Oberlin University, Tokyo, where he has taught 3 big history courses since last year. 2019, Professor Hirofumi Katayama, and he organized inaugural International Big History Symposium at Oberlin, hosting scholars from India, the Philippines, Hong Kong, China, Korea, Australia, and Japan. And he has a nice proposal out for the conference. I would believe it would be in May of 2027 at JF Oberlin in Tokyo. We just had a survey going out on that. I hope all of you responded to it. If not, do so very quickly. It was really supposed to be done last night, but you can still get it in if you haven't already. So, Nobuo, do you want to start?
Yes. Thank you very much for kind introduction, President Dave Lupoa. And thank you for coming. And good morning and good evening, everyone. Today's my presentation title is From Cosmic Round Trip to Cosmic Feast, Nature and Vision of Big History. So what is nature of big history? This is a question that is worth for asking today. More than 3 decades of coinage of the term big history by David Christian, and 2 decades have passed since I came across big history when young. So today's presentation is a part of my project to recap my study of big history in the past. I think this paper would be a long article, so long that I can talk about for an hour, but today's the length of my presentation, the time of my presentation is limited. At the same time, I'm the very first presenter of this symposium. So instead of talking all of what I want to talk about, today I'll focus on only some points on my draft paper and connect them with other presentations to come when possible. Okay, the first part of my presentation is nature of big history. So, the term big history is used in many different usages. The first, the big history is the historical reality we are now studying. So the reality to be studied. The second, the study and research of that reality is also called big history. And definition of big history by the International Big History Association focuses on this aspect. And third, as a result of that research, so we can weave different facts and stories into one narrative, and narrative for everyone. And that is also big history. And education at many institutions also called big history. And for a long time, I have argued that big history is part of grand transformation of worldview and relations. Now, our world is rapidly and fundamentally changing, and humanity itself is in question now. So in that very rapid change, many people want to rethink fundamental thing by tracing back its origin. So if we can provide the necessary things to rethink something fundamentally and deeply, the people begin to create new way of seeing, a new way of living. So that's come out as various forms of expression and movement. And lastly, we've never seen another intelligent life. But someday, if we can see one of them or some of them, we can introduce each other by telling respective big histories. So that's 6 phases of big history. And so for educational use, I simplify these things into 4 categories, easier to understand for students. Anyway, some 5 minutes have passed, so time passed like arrow. And next topic is 10 features of big history. But it's simple. So what are differences, big history and other histories? And what are the real characteristics of big history? The first thing I want to point out is entirety. So big history is history from the beginning to the end, and it deals with everything, the whole thing, across all of space and time. In this symposium, shallow matter has dissatisfaction with existing big history, and Gabriel Lima will discuss big history without ends. So I'm looking forward to seeing your papers and presentations. Next, the pan-disciplinarity. So very rarely call it super interdisciplinary paradigm, and where we can combine and connect different disciplines. But it's not everything. Pan-disciplinarity of big history also allow us to transform existing discipline. A very good example is Roald Gustafson's Big Politics. He expanded definition of poverty to the realm of life and non-living things. I don't go in details today, but please read it. Read his article, Big Politics, if you have not seen it. Third, zoomability. So big history is the best vehicle to move across different scales. And 4, general patterns and systems. And so big historian Manny Hughes Bollington calls big history is a kind of lens to capture these general patterns. Next, a bigger identity, global systems and cosmic systems and children of stars. That's what Carl Sagan said. And 6th and 7th are what even some big historians are not fully aware of. So in Japan, Yuval Noah Harari's bestseller *Sapiens* is often called big history. But I don't think so. That book mainly focuses on recent 70,000 years, so it's not big enough to be counted as big history. So at least to be called big history, we need to go beyond human history and Earth history. Next, So big history allows us fundamental thinking. And that inspire many people, and that leads to fundamental question: what is life? What is humanity? So big history is worth learning for the lifetime, and for that reason, big history can be seen ultimately as. So that's the term Professor Katayama at Oberlin University coined. And in this symposium, Lionel Babbage will point out, I believe, so one of his important argument is related to this point. And lastly, finally, as I already stated, big history is part of grand transformation of worldview and relations. So when a way of seeing changes, a way of acting, relating, living also change. Then among them, among what I already mentioned, what is most important, what matters most, the core method of big history is cosmic round trip. So when teaching big history, I'm telling my students that big history is like a journey. In everyday life, we are very interested in the same humans. Our head, our mind is full of human affairs. And so someone is doing this and doing that, blah, 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 something like that. But by reading human affairs, the human world, and then by visiting other worlds, other existences, cosmos, Earth, and other living organisms, our perspective will change. How one's perspective change? So it can vary person to person, but this is the most exciting moment, aspects of big history, of doing big history. And then after that, we return to the human world. So recentering and refocusing humans. Something is different when we left the human world first. So this is the fresh surprise for many people, and I'm still enjoying this journey. Every time I can learn something, I can make a presentation on something. Then I want to move to the final part of today's presentation, vision for big history. But I want to see here first is vision does matter. So IBHA's saying, the history is about dialogue between past and present, is very, very famous. But in the latter part of the same book, he also emphasized that. So I should rather have called it dialogue between the events of the past and progressively emerging future end. So, future vision, how we see the future affects description on the past. And vision and future vision is also important when we envision the future of big history. I have attended every major, almost all of every major conference or symposium of the IBHA, but in recent years, I have felt that more and more themes and subject of the presentation looks similar, and that's kind of nihilism. So we need to overcome it. At the same time, we need to avoid the new direction, new orientation leads to monoculture. So good to about more or less one direction, only single unified direction will not work. So that leads to the suppression of other initiative, other direction. So to explore diversity, everyone, each people has his or her own future vision for big history. So today, I will talk about very briefly my vision for the future of big history. That can be summarized in three marches: multiform, multicultural, and multinatural. And first is making big history multicultural. This is the slide I showed in the past conference, so I will not repeat the same explanation. The Humboldt can be seen, one of the founders of big history. Likewise, Murabayan in Japan might be able to see one of the founders of big history in Japan. But today, what I want to talk about today is not that things. So he is Matsui Takafumi, geophysicist in Japan, who passed away a few years ago. And this is related to the next speaker, the Roald Gustafsson. So reading his abstract, so one of arguments he will point out is differentiation, so division of the big history community. So like threshold international increasing complexity, Matsui mentions differentiation is a universal trend in history.
2 minutes to 15 minutes.
Okay. In cosmic history, in Earth history, and history of life. So we can see differentiation. But his point is differentiation not only the process by which homogeneous whole separates into distinct parts, but also the process through which new relations and structures arise from these parts. I think a big history community as a whole on this planet itself is in this process nowadays. And then second, make big history multinatural. And then this is the slide I showed in the past conference, so I will not repeat the same explanation here. But my point is multiculturalism means open to other cultures, and multinaturalism is open to other living organisms. So we need to the perspective of other living organisms. The third, making big history multiform. So big history is called modern creation myth, and myth is expressed in all forms of expression. Like that, I request, I make a request my students to make their final assignments in literal form and in non-literal form. So this is
15 minutes.
okay. This is one of the best dance performance by my students. Although I will not show you today, if you have an interest in it, please let me know. So I'll share it with you later. And finally, it is interesting in an existential sense, not an academic sense. Mythologist Joseph Campbell is more progressive than Beck historians. So we Beck historians often says that Beck history is Beck history tries to place Beck history try to find our place in the universe, but he says it's not the purpose of myth. Myth is about tuning the harmony of one's body to the larger harmony of the world. And then myth is not quest for meaning, but something that helps us enjoy the joy of living. I know this statement goes beyond the range of academic word, but to me, big history is joy, joy weaving new world view and relation, and joy working with many people while resonating with souls. Thank you.
Excellent, Nobuo. Very nice. And so we have time here for discussion. I see some others have joined us since we started, and we are recording these. So let's open the floor for any questions or discussion. Please unmute yourself and ask. If we have more than one, just raise your hand. Yes, Lowell.
Well, I don't even have a question. I just want to thank Nobuo. I think you get our conference off to exactly the right start. So thank you. You know, you're as I understand the gist of what you're saying. You're asking for a kind of a big tent approach to big history, open to various cultures and different interpretations and different inputs. And I think that's exactly what we're all going to be trying to talk about. So I just thank you for getting us off to just the right start.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure. My presentation is not a call for following or going along my vision, but call for making your own vision for big history. Thank you.
So just on that, besides reading your writings and your colleagues' writings, do you see any specific steps or actions that we could take to incorporate this into big history? Should there be, another group that discusses this, and what would you suggest besides reading your papers?
I think the planning, the conference is very important. And so the whole entire theme and each panel theme. So we need something fresh for that. And also your great initiative to support the Journal of Big History is great. And so it's my joy to write my own article to contribute it to the journal later.
Excellent. Ken?
Thank you, David. You seem to indicate that a mythic element to big history, which I'll also talk about that. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yes. So I once I very fond of compare big history to modern myths, and in the past, um, modern ancient myths were not only written but also danced, sung, and drawn. So through these various forms of expressions, ancient myths were penetrated into many people. And I think the same thing um, is needed. And the cosmic round trip I explained today, I think was common with ancient shamans. They left human world and they visited animal and plant world and then returned to the human world. Then through this journey, they gained the vision, and after that journey, they translated their experiences into human language. So fundamentally and essentially, we have done the same thing, but in different forms. That's my understanding. And and one another important thing is doing big history is fun, very interesting. So inspired, greatly inspired. No one stops. Make it artworks like Star Wars and Star Trek, something like that. So fundamental inspiration brought us creativity, release our own creativity. So it's like volcano.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Wendy?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Well, I agree with all that this is a great start to the conference. And big history really, these ideas that it's like joyful um, and obviously interesting. And I think there's some ways to have some actions around this. I wrote down some of the terms you used, especially cosmic round trip. Um, um, and I'm thinking that maybe we can come up with like coining some phrases that help describe big history in a succinct way. I sometimes stumble when I explain it to other people or get too wordy. And this cosmic round trip is really a great way to start in on this with, it goes from humans to the cosmos and Earth and other living things and back to humans. There's a few other ones like I wrote down a dialogue between events of the past and emerging future events, which I think is really great. But maybe that could be turned into a smaller phrase, things that could become more of a trademark to big history that were easily conveyed. Um,
We only have
and
about a minute left if we were to have a 5-minute break for the next
okay,
one.
and my last thing is perhaps we need to come up with a term for what big history isn't. Books like Sapiens, I mean, they're good. They put humanity in a bigger context than it's usually in, but it is not big history, and it's missing those other emergent properties. Um, and it's easy to see why people think that's like big history. I mean, it is a bigger overview, but it's not the same thing. And I don't have a word off that I know of, but that might help too to come up with some more of these labels. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Right.
We're essentially out of time if we want a 5-minute break.
Yes. So I think if you want to, some of you want to take a break, that's fine. I think we can continue if we have other discussions here for this. Really want to thank Nobuo again for an excellent start presentation for this. Really, this is open up. Excellent.